of dust, and the sons of great visions, we're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
Thank you. Good morning. Happy Father's Day, which can be a complicated greeting today, depending on our experience. I'm the Reverend Kevin Tarsa. If we haven't met, I'm glad to see you here, whether you're online or you're in the chanting room down the hall or you're here in the room. And I want to offer a special welcome to Reverend Sangye Hawke. Yeah. Reverend Sangye is serving the Sierra Foothills Unitarian Universalists in Auburn, which was the congregation out of which the original formers of this congregation came. So there's a direct connection. And recently I went to Auburn and the two of us led a service together, and today we're leading one here together. And with Reverend Sangye, David Marcus and Eric Howe, worship associates from the congregation. And Eric and I actually met at a conference many, many years ago. So this is a nice reconnection. Thank you all for being here very much. And Gabrielle Lawson is our accompanist today. Gabrielle, thank you. Thank you. So here's the cell phone reminder. And I really encourage you, actually, if you're not certain, just to take it out and double check. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to do that because we're about to say hello to the people around us sensitively. So that means paying attention to maybe how people are wanting to be greeted or welcomed. And I invite those of us who are longtime folks and regulars here to make sure that everyone is being greeted well and warmly and as much as we can in the way that they desire to be greeted. Now's your chance to say hello to the people around you.
Coffee afterwards. We'll talk later. That could go on and on, couldn't it? Each Sunday, we remind ourselves to remember throughout the week that the history of this area continues to live in people's lives and bodies, including our own. With this symbol of this basket of black oak acorns that we place upon our altar, we remind ourselves that the Nishanan people never ceded, never gave up their lands, and are still here among us today, resilient beyond genocide and generations of erasure and exclusion from California's history. Let us remember, with care and commitment, that we gather today on Nishanan land.
Let us hold a quiet moment now as we light our chalice. Okay.
Henry David Thoreau wrote in his journal on February 2nd, 1841, "A child asked his father, 'What became of the old moon?' And he said, 'It was cut up into stars.'"
Consider the light, light out of darkness. Light begets light.
The light which the God of Genesis brought out of the darkness is the light that became our world.
Our sun's light reflecting off our moon is eclipsed, but then returns to us as our earth quietly moves out of the way.
In our current scientific understanding of the origins of the universe, the light of everything that exploded from not quite nothing is the light that became the maybe everything of which we are barely a part.
This light we now kindle here will become a light for each of us to carry forth as we find our way through the shadows on our path. Let us be grateful for the light in our lives, even as we honor the dark from which the light came.
Can you hear me? Great. Good morning. And good morning to those on Zoom. My name is Reverend Sangye Hawke, and I am the lead minister at Sierra Foothills Unitarian Universalists, your parent. Oh, we're here to visit. And of course, parents always love to tell stories, especially to their children. Now, you may wonder what this is. Well, there's a story about the story I'm about to tell you today that originated at my very first time in the pulpit at the Santa Cruz Church, which is 150 years old. Well, more than that now, but. And they had a special time called the Time for All Ages. We call ours at our church, TFAA, but they always had stuff in a wonder box, and it was crammed full with puppets and cards and stories. So I knew that I didn't have to worry about providing a story. I could just go to the wonder box, and I did, and it was there waiting for me, and I opened it up, and I said to the congregation, "Well, let's see what's in the wonder box today." And there was nothing in there. So I had to pivot. And so it just so happened that I also was doing a long service as a cemetery preservationist. And Santa Cruz County has a very old cemetery called Evergreen. And I discovered 11 Unitarians were buried there, but they were misclassified as Methodists. It happens. Okay. So that being said, the first thing that popped into my mind was the journey. And so I'm going to tell you that story. It's a story about a young man named Thomas who got offered a job as a minister to some congregation in the mountains. And so he left his home on the East Coast, and he carried with him his trunk or his little box that was filled with all of his treasures, his Bible, his journal, pots of ink, rolls of parchment, a locket, ribbon for letters he would receive from his love, and of course his father's watch, which was very valuable. Well, he got off the dock in San Francisco, and whoa, what a place. It was happening. It was 1850, and there were all manner of folk from everywhere wandering around, and he finally said, how do I get to Auburn? How do I get to Auburn? And people were going, you have to get on a steamboat, and it's going to cost you extra. Well, we all know how expensive California is. And of course, Thomas had really not, he used up all the money his grandma had given him for the trip. And he said, well, okay, how about some bottles of ink? Can that get me halfway to where do I need to go? Oh yeah, you gotta take a steamship to Sacramento. Oh, okay, well, how much does that cost? Well, let's see what you got in that box. And of course, Thomas trusted the person, and he said, I'll take that watch. So he used the watch, and off he went on the steamboat, up the Delta. Yes, you can go still up there to the Sac River, pulled into port, and he's like, where's Auburn? Where do I go? I have this gig I have to get to there. And they said, oh, you got to take the ox train. The what? The ox train. You got to get on there, and it's all the way up the hill. And it's expensive. And he goes, well, how about some bottles of ink? Are you kidding? I'll take the parchment and the bottles of the ink, the driver said. And that ribbon, too, for my lady. And what else have you got in there? Just my apples, please. And so he got on the ox train and went all the way up. And when he got there, well, it's a mining camp. Lots of tents, lots of very surly-looking folk who are looking at him like, city boy. He ain't gonna last very long. But something burned in Thomas. It was something called a call. And Thomas said, I'm your new minister. And they went, yeah, all right. Well, Thomas felt kind of frightened and scared and homesick. And that night he cried, and he opened up his box, which was empty, and he smelled the apples that he had brought with him that were now gone. And he started to cry. Then in the morning, which happened to be a Sunday, by the way, he was holding on to his box, and the miners were really interested, and they all came inside the tent, and they said, hey, what's in that box? And he's like, why? And they said, well, we want to see what's inside that box. He's like, okay. And the miner just came forward and took it out of his hands and opened it up, and he said, It's empty. Why are you carrying an empty box around? And Thomas just waited. And then he goes, oh my, I remember my mama's orchard, and I miss my mama. And then he put the box to his buddy who was standing next to him going, that's a nice box. Wow, that's really well built. Oh man, my daddy built boxes like this. I miss my daddy very much. And he passed the box on. And the box went all around, and every miner opened it up and told a story about who they missed, what their lives had been like, and why they were there. They even shared their joys and concerns. When the box made its way back to Thomas, he put it down on the table, and he looked at them and said, you know, that box is not empty. And of course, there's always one miner who says, well, why didn't you just sell the damn thing? He said, because now we have a place to put our thoughts, our feelings, our joys, our concerns. Our hearts may feel empty, but really, they are full. And all the miners looked at him and went, they're full. And every Sunday, they came and told their stories in the empty box. So you, even though you feel your heart is empty, it is full of memories, of love, and of purpose. We just have to remember them and place them in a precious spot. Thank you.
Reverend Sangye, thank you. And with that, we share the same light from this chalice to go with our youngest ones on their way to Kids Connection with the song, This Little Light of Mine.
Good morning. Good morning. And happy Father's Day. I'm Beth Karow, a longtime worship associate here at UUCM, the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains. And I'm so happy today to be joined by some of the fine folk from the Sierra Foothills Unitarian Universalists. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all, whether you are attending here in our sanctuary or in the Overflow Sanctuary in the Channing Room, online, over Zoom, hosted by Eileen Hale, or watching on YouTube sometime in the future. In case you haven't already, please check your cell phones and double check to see that your electronics have been sufficiently silenced. This is the third Sunday in the month of June. Wow, already. During which we are exploring in a variety of ways the theme of freedom, framed so intriguingly by Reverend Kev in his column in this month's Mountain Chalice newsletter, as not just freedom from, but freedom to, which along with and the freedom to be will be the title of next week's service with Elizabeth Rose and Cheryl Morris. Today, though, the title is The Faith of Our Fathers or Not. Interesting. Even loaded, perhaps. I mean, take fathers, right? We all have them. Some of us are them. Our country has immortalized our founding fathers. We have founding fathers of our religious tradition. But not all fathers are great, though, actually, wait. I'm not going to go there right now. Let's leave fathers. Let's move on to faith. Now, faith can be a sticky, tricky word for some, particularly those who are led by logic, science, and free will, which seems to tick a lot of boxes for UUs. Faith might imply a belief in the absence of proof. Blind faith. I don't need to see it, I just know it. That doesn't always sit right. But as I mentioned earlier, I've been a worship associate for a long time. I've crafted or helped to craft so many services. For most of them, a lot of them, my involvement began months ahead, with each element carefully selected to blend and work with the next. Occasionally, though, like with today's service, it wasn't like that for me. So I'm finding myself leaning heavily on faith this morning. Faith that even if I don't have a good understanding about what's to come in the next hour or so, others probably do. Faith that what needs to be spoken will be heard, and what needs to be heard will be spoken. Faith that even that the time that we spend together in community today, no matter how it unfolds, it will enrich us, intrigue us, and inspire us to keep on keeping on. Welcome.
Our opening words are rooted in the many layers and complexities of fatherhood and fathering and our own sense of fathers. And I invite you, as you hear these words read by Eric, to have in mind not only our family fathers and those kinds of experiences, but also our ancestors in this tradition, right? Those parents of our tradition, the forebears who had their own ways of being, and the complex layers of that relationship, too.
Father's Day in Our Imperfect World by the Reverend Margot Reinhardt. On this Father's Day, like all the others, we are here again, reflecting on all the complexities of relationship, the paradoxes that challenge the simplicity of our understandings. My father, angry and gentle, justice-seeking and prosecutorial, ally and abandoning, raised in poverty, but possessing the wealth of experience, the gifts of friendship, the tenacity of spirit. Superman when he placed his arm between a dog's bared teeth and my 5-year-old face. The advocate when he escorted a guest from our home after a racist word had been used and defended. The criticizer when he felt the need to see my mother's contributions as less than his own. On Father's Day, may we see all that they truly are, the greatness and the grist. May we feel the strength they gave to us. May we repair any wounds remaining. May we carry forth their dreams for us.
We've been lighting each week a flame of compassion, resistance, and resilience. We light this flame to affirm and remind ourselves of the compassion that is called forth in these times. Compassion for our own understandable feelings and reactions. Compassion for those whose liberty and well-being are being placed in ever greater jeopardy. And compassion also for those whose values seem so antithetical to our own. People who are seeking to meet human needs we actually also have and understand in ways that we don't yet understand or agree with. We light this flame to affirm and remind ourselves of the need for resistance, the use of our own power and courage, and our agency when words and deeds are causing harm in body or in spirit. We light this flame to affirm and remind ourselves that resilience is inherent in us, in humanity, in the earth, and yet still surprising, nurtured by our hope and our trust, which we cultivate without any guarantee. Each of us, and as a community, may we live compassion, resistance, and resilience in just the right proportions for this time, for each given day, and for each moment of meaning that arrives, whether or not we are feeling ready. I contemplated whether it was time to add a new candle, a taller candle, but there was something fitting about a candle that's getting lower. It's still there, but getting lower. And I thought, enough for the service, right? Enough. Oh my goodness, there's a whole lot going on in our hearts and heads and worries and hopes. I invite you to feel out what that is for you today. Out of the whole list, maybe. What's at the top today? Whether it's a great joy or a great worry or a sadness, what's at the top of the list for you? We arrive from all our different lives when we get here on a Sunday morning, whether it's on Zoom or in the room, carrying all of this in our hearts. And we engage this ritual each week of the chance for those in the room to place a stone in the bowl of water. It's a way to embody, to physically acknowledge what's in your heart, and also to release it into that bowl. Not that it goes away, but to know that it's held by this community and far beyond. For those on Zoom, typing a circle, a 0 or an O into the chat is equivalent of placing a stone. But you also have the chance to spell out a little bit of what's in your heart, in words if you choose. I invite all of us to enter this time with the prayerfulness, with the care, with the attentiveness that suits us this morning, that meets our spirit, and to know that we're holding each other in this time, that something very important is happening even in the quiet and the music when no words are being said. And some things may never, ever be shared. May we enter this time with deep intention. All the rest that we're holding. And our pastoral prayer invited this morning by Reverend Sangye.
Compassion. Compassion is so vital right now, but there is a mantra. In my faith tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, chanting resets the body, calms the soul, and the words that they bring to this chant generate compassion for the world. So when you speak these words outward, you are sending the intention to clear the world of hatred, to heal the world of pain, and to transform the universe, one being not left behind. That mantra is on many things, from bowls to tingsha. And today we're going to learn how to say it. Now, as you notice on the screen, there are two versions. Some of you may have heard the traditional Sanskrit, Om Mani Padme Hum. But today we are going to do the Tibetan version, which is a little more song-like. Om Mani Padme Hum. Please repeat after me. Om Mani Padme Hum. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sing this chant continually, over and over again. No matter what happens, please keep it up. Yes, surprise await. We begin this prayer, as is the tradition, with a note or 3 notes. The mantra is also on the tingsha. You will see it here. So we are summoning in the power of compassion. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 The colors of the rainbow, all our identities are in the faces of our people happily. I see parents holding their children in heart. They're really saying, I love you, and I think we should tell ourselves what a wonderful world. Yes, think yourselves, what a wonderful world.
Oh, that's me. In her blog, 100 Falling Veils, Rosemary Watola Tromer writes,
Perhaps it would eventually erode, but that rock that we have been pushing up the hill,
that one that keeps rolling back down and we keep pushing back up.
what if we stopped? We are not Sisyphus. This rock is not a punishment.
It's something we've chosen to push. Who knows why?
I look at all the names we once carved into its sedimentary sides. How important I thought they were, those names.
How I've clung to labels. Who's right? Who's wrong? How I've cared about who's pushed harder and who's been slack.
Now all I want is to let the rock roll back to where it belongs, which is wherever it lands.
And you and I could Imagine.
Walk unencumbered all the way to the top and
Walk and walk and never stop.
except to discover what our hands might do if for once they were no longer pushing.
I'm sorry, I'm not used to this pulpit. Okay. Good morning, beloved congregation of Grass Valley. I am deeply honored to visit you today. I've brought with me two loving members of my congregation, Eric Howe and David Marcus. And yes, we are your parent congregation, Sierra Foothills. And we are very proud parents. And how appropriate for us to visit our child on this particularly parent-centric day. One that represents the stewardship parents feel, especially this weekend, as many parents are celebrating their children's graduation from their respective educational institutions. Thank you for inviting us to participate in celebrating your 30th anniversary, birthday? Yeah? Oh, happy day! In case for people on Zoom, I also like to add a description. I am an indigenous Asian elder with dyed purplish hair, wearing a rainbow stole over a white blazer. As Rev called it, as Rev Kev, your minister, and he used these terms, which I love, we dreamed and schemed on what kind of homily I was to present today. Now, you've been exploring boundaries and horizons as part of your anniversary celebration. And in a way, the subject of Fathers of Our Faith represents the struggle we UUs have with our past. How can we pull from the bounty of our history? Our understanding and knowledge of our UU past can feel scarce. But really, today is Father's Day. How do we reconcile the bounty of past theological roots with the present scarcity and guidance on UU identity? It all starts with that word, Father. What does it mean, this word, Father? For some, it carries the burden of patriarchy and the harm engendered within that system. For others, father means to seed something, as opposed to incubation and birth, which we celebrate on Mother's Day. The word father is used to simply state the start of something, from governments to people. Founding fathers, like Beth had said. The fathers of physics, who can tell me it's a test, I will grade you. That's Galileo, Newton, Einstein. There are probably a few women in there somewhere, but the father of medicine, which is Hippocrates, the Holy Father, and others. One example we want to never use again, fatherland. In our faith, many of us in California feel that Thomas Starr King is our founding faith father, though some will lend that title to William Channing, Ralph Waldo Emerson, James Luther Adams, Henry David Thoreau, and that's just the Unitarians. We haven't even begun to name the Universalists or other influential transcendentalists like Theodore Parker, who, by the way, inspired Starr King. I just wanted to make a note that Theodore Parker's sermons were sent to Starr King because they didn't think he was a good enough preacher, but keep in mind those sermons were an hour long. 3 times a day. So you're lucky, folks. I'm only here for 20 minutes. But to ignore the title is to also ignore the greater aspects of faith's journey. We find ourselves caught in this identity of gender power. We give more authority to a gender identity in certain manners than we should. Mansplaining. Kings. But at the same time, we recognize that all genders, even the 197,000 genders of fungi, have something to teach us. When I was young, my Russian-Polish father, a child of immigrant parents, was obsessed with trying to buy a Cadillac. A car, to his post-World War II mind, felt symbolized American success. He was American. He was born in Pennsylvania in a family of 11, his father a coal miner, his mother a farmer. My father saved up and visited showrooms, but when he retired, the car that symbolized American success had shifted in the popular culture to European models, and the engine he knew how to build from valve up became alien to him. He didn't understand why there were computer chips or the smaller and sleeker cars with fuel economy were now a status symbol of wealth and security. The technology boom required higher education in science. He found himself questioning his own identity as a hardworking blue-collar person. He felt he was an invisible old man with an outdated trade school education, the lowest of the low in his mind. He could not fathom dropping large sums of hard-earned money on tiny things like phones and computers and this, because he had lived through his experience with the Great Depression. He knew that money could disappear overnight, and believe me, we're seeing that now. It heightened his own inner unhappiness of never quite feeling like he had made it because he could lose it. Even though he owned what today would be considered very prosperous. He believed in a punitive God, and his belief that he did not make life good enough, eventually killed him. He literally died of a broken heart because he feared the technology that could have saved him. His faith was scarce, limited in a love from a God he grew up believing oversaw his fate and did not understand what it meant to be loved. His life felt so scarce in its existence, and nothing could change that belief. Now, Starr King, in the 1860s, had a sermon called Life More Abundantly. He believed that, and I quote, "True abundance comes not from intensity and not alone from the number of objects with which we are in communion, but from depth." Depth, Starr King described, is the spirit that has a sense of justice, quick and large, and lives by it in relation to his fellows, and tries to organize more of it through himself in society. He lives deeper than the man of intellect and infinitely deeper than the man of pleasure. Every kind of life that is essentially superficial does not bring the human heart nearer to the infinite presence and love. Wow, they were talking about abundance and scarcity even then. In case you didn't know this, Thomas Starr King really was inspired by Theodore Parker, the transcendentalist who adored Ralph Waldo Emerson. And that brings us the realization that we draw so much that is not directly Unitarian or Universalist, but in UU thinking, just makes sense. Not just for now, every day. My father's attitude about faith was that it kept you from giving in to the darker nature of yourself. The Catholic community he belonged to was also judgmental to the woman of color that was his wife, and his half-white children were to be punished daily in the system of education that was unique to religious institutions of that time. Abundance of understanding was clearly lacking as a faith practice and had its intended effect: subjugation and fear. So far from the actual meaning of the word Catholic, which does mean the quality of being universal or inclusive, encompassing a wide range of ideas, beliefs, and practices, says the dictionary, Merriam-Webster. And I remind you, UUs, the dictionary is one of our sacred texts. Okay? So, Starr King's biographer Charles Wente, in his 1921 biography of Thomas, says and this is, I didn't even know you could itty a word, but he did it, Catholicity of Starr King's nature is so admirably displayed in a discourse on spiritual Christianity. One of the statements Starr King said in that discourse was, "Some creeds have truth and little power, others have power and very little truth." Let me say that again. Some creeds have truth and little power, others have power and very little truth. Starr King continues on, and he says, "When a Catholic talks with you about the Church of Christ as a social power, he means nothing more, and he cannot conceive how anything else can be meant by that. Miraculous diffusion of divine grace through popes, bishops, decrees, clergy, sacraments, who go to them regularly." And Starr King continued to say that churching was a divine-built battery for the spiritual electricity of heaven, and no one can receive a stream or spark of it until he visibly joins hands with the faithful around an altar and obtain a magical touch from a priest. This is the 1860s, mind you. Now, understand these are his words. But I think Starr King was reacting also to the impact and result of mechanization and industrialization and its effect on nature and our connection with it. He does go on to speak about vitality and the spirit that flows through nature as truly divine, and how important it was to receive the abundance of this divinity, freely available to all. And that, to me, is why he is loved so much as the father of Unitarian presence here in this state, even though he definitely was not the first Unitarian presence here, I'd say around 1840. There were quite a few who quietly held to what Starr King captured about this wonderful world, what we feel every day in this little valley of heavenly green, these footprints to the majesty of the mountains called Sierra. His preaching held one theme in his words: meditate upon the infinite as the holiest and the best. And so in these perilous times, when we are exhausted by the velocity of information that is barely believable and sometimes manipulatively shocking, remember our forebears and their message of abundance to be found in the spirit of the lands around us and in the spirit of I love you in this wonderful world. Continue to uphold these UU values because love is truly at the center. Blessings be.
At this point, I really want to simply say thank you, Reverend Sangye, very much. Yeah. Ruth Edwards, who is the archivist historian for the congregation, said, "You should talk about Starr King, Thomas Starr King, one of these days." And so Reverend Sangye and I were dreaming and scheming, and Reverend Sangye just volunteered. They had this idea about talking about Starr King. I said, there we go. There we go. But it also got me started on exploring more deeply Thomas Starr King, who spoke in Nevada City on at least 3 different occasions. And then he wrote of the horrors of hydraulic mining, even though it turned out the person running the hydraulic mining at the time was an acquaintance from Boston. Many more things about him. I guess I would say on this Father's Day, 2 things. He, on his second visit, he gave one of his most popular lectures on April 10th, 1861, on George Washington. His main point was that we should honor George Washington by preserving the Union. This is when the southern states were either naming or threatening secession, and he said we should honor George Washington by actually protecting the Union. And to name that his father was a Universalist minister whose gospel was the gospel of inclusion. So here's Thomas Starr King, who he's credited with saving the state of California for the Union, and was a very powerful voice against slavery. Much more to be said about that. But to name those two things, we inherit things from our parents, some of which we reject or try to reject and still inherit, right? But I want to name that link for him from his father, who was not a fancy, educated person, but spoke really passionately through that lens of that gospel of inclusion. And then Thomas Starr King picked it up, brought it to this side of the continent in a way that affected ultimately the entire nation. But more about those later. So mostly to say thank you on this Father's Day.
So let's take a moment to honor the ancestors of this church, the people who first came together to create a home for liberal religion here in Grass Valley, or North Auburn, as it were. They worked to raise money for this building. They sat in committee meetings and created bylaws. They chopped and stirred and marinated and baked for potlucks. They painted and weeded and pounded nails and washed countless dishes. They made endless pots of coffee. Thank you. They gathered to worship, to learn, to grieve, to heal, to serve, to build justice, to transform their lives and this world. We are the recipients of an incredible gift and a beautiful vision. So let us now do our part to keep this congregation strong, vital, and thriving for generations to come. The greeters will now please come forward to gratefully receive this morning's offering, of which 50% all month will support Color Me Human, whose mission is to fearlessly fight the systems of oppression and boldly champion equity and inclusion for all people, while serving as a bridge to building a vibrant and empowered community. we dedicate these gifts, freely given and gratefully received, to the work of this congregation, building honest, caring relationships across all lines of difference, growing in spirit and searching for meaning together and apart, promoting religious freedom, practicing compassion, and working for justice. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith.
Betsy, thank you for the harp playing today. So, Betsy playing on the harp, that was Judith Ellen O'Neill's, a member of this congregation who died a couple of years ago and was given, I think, even before Pete died, before her husband Pete died. Thank you. Beautiful. Gabrielle, thank you very much for being at the piano this morning. Eric and David, thanks for providing enough resonance to balance my lack of resonance. That was... But really beautiful reading, each of you. Thank you. Reverend Sangye, thank you. It's great to have your spirit as well as your words and wisdom in the building. Thank you. Beth, thank you for being a worship associate, even without knowing too many things about it. Thanks to Paul and Steve, our steady folks at the AV this morning. Eileen, as our chat host online, who shepherds people every week. Shanti for the setting with the current flowers, among other things. Katz and Carl and others who all automatically help greet. Thank you very much for greeting people as we come. Carol Grant is our lay pastoral care associate. Would you stand up, Carol, just so people can see you? So if you're, our lay pastoral care team is there to be a listening ear as you need. That is Carol today in that official capacity. Thanks to those who provided refreshments, and to Jenny and Cheryl for being with our young ones upstairs. Just a couple of quick announcements. Citizens Climate Lobby meets here tomorrow. Buildings and Grounds Work Party is next Saturday. It's a great way to come and do something simple without obligation beyond that day. Come and join in. For those who are members, the anniversary book is here to sign. Please sign it. We're honoring the 30th by everyone re-signing, kind of in their own way. And today's your chance to vote for Share the Plate partners, the organizations that in this coming year will receive half of the Sunday offering. So Keith is there ready for you at the table. And if you're wondering about what those sticky notes are doing around the walls of the building, as the rooms have been painted and will be painted, the chance is to say what goes back up here and what doesn't. Is this a place for art? Nothing, a bulletin board. That's what those are about, and you have a chance to weigh in on what goes there. So that's what that's about. And there's some new flooring coming in the back, but it means the building will be very occupied by that flooring for those days that were just listed. So if you have regular meetings, Siobhan will be in touch with you, but from June 23rd to the 27th, just know that things will be a little bit different. For our closing song, I invite us to pick up on that thread of abundance, right, in the midst of everything else, and I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, and we'll sing Thank You for This Day. And you'll notice in a moment that it's a zipper song. In other words, there's a chance to name what you're feeling thankful for. Thank you for this day, oh, thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, oh, thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. That's the whole song. Thank you for this day, oh, thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, oh, thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. What else? Thank you for this? Faith. Thank you for this faith, oh, thank you for this faith. Thank you for this faith, oh, thank you for this faith. This healing, this healing, this healing faith. This healing, this healing, this healing faith. What else? Friends and freedom, choose. Thank you for these friends, oh, thank you for these friends. Thank you for these friends, oh, thank you for these friends. These healing friends. These healing friends. What else? Beauty. Thank you for this 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 beauty. This healing beauty. This healing beauty. One more. Sorry? Guests. Thank you for these guests. Oh, thank you for these guests. Thank you for these guests. Oh, thank you for these guests. These healing guests. These healing guests. And now everybody name your own thing that you're thankful for when we get to that spot. Ready? Thank you for this road. 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 This healing road. This healing road. Thank you for this day, oh, thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, oh, thank you for this day. This healing day. This healing day.
This is an extract from a Thomas Starr King essay called Lessons of the Sierra Nevada. Believe in the best thoughts and whisperings that visit thy heart. If thou dost catch at times some gleams of the divinings of charity, of the glory of sacrifice, of the grandeur of faith, of the sky-piercing power of prayer, like mountain peaks jutting through fogs, or slopes afar off in the horizon light, believe in them with more enthusiasm than in the stupid dust of beaten roads. Make your home where they will inspire you, where you can easily ascend their slopes and see the world from a higher point and feel the very land, the very presence of nature. Believe in them, for they are the mountain principles and altar piles of life. Breathe the air that is refreshed on their heights. Drink of the streams that flow fresh from the channels in their sides. And in every season of doubt, temptation, or despair, lift up thine eyes unto the hill from whence cometh thy help.
Our community benediction is actually inherited in spirit from the Sierra Foothills Unitarian Universalists. This benediction, these good words we say to each other every week to remind ourselves that we are not alone. Together we will extinguish this chalice, but we will carry the flame of peace and love until we get again. Hope to see you next Sunday. Please join us for conversation and refreshments if you're here in the room.